Good morning, Emma. How are you?
So well, thank you so much for having me back.
Thank you. Yes, it was May when you came on before, when we were looking forward to the glorious sunshine, and you were telling us a lot about sun cream. And today we will focus on what's changing for women around menopause. What effect does that have on the skin? What we can do. I know you're very, very passionate about keeping your skin glowing, and there's so much that we can do to do that. But we'll look at some of those challenges that we might hit. And I would say, particularly at this time of year, as we go into winter and start to put the heating on and, get that wind chill going on. So some of those specific challenges too. That said, it's 30 degrees outside and it's very hot in here, so it feels we might have to just imagine that winter's with us. Starting right at the beginning then, Emma, if you would, could you tell us, how does our skin change during menopause and why does it change?
I think it really does change, and unfortunately our skin is a bit at the mercy of our hormones. So we know that, when we go through teenage years and when we go through any pregnancies that people might have had, and then come menopause, there are dramatic changes. And I think particularly women are really at the mercy of their hormones. And when I'm thinking about the sorts of changes that can happen during menopause, I start thinking at each different level, because the skin is divided into a number of different levels, and it's really interesting to try and understand what happens at each different level to sort of work out what's going on with your skin if you are noticing a change during menopause. So the outer layer of your skin, which we call the stratum corneum, is all about sort of hydration and keeping the skin in. You've got this amazing thing called your skin barrier, which is there as a nice protective layer to keep all the hydration and the sort of glow and the good bits in, but to keep any sort of irritants out. And that's one of the first things that we start to see change during menopause. You find that your skin barrier is a little bit weakened, so your skin can get drier, it can get much more sensitive. And the natural sort of water holding ability of the skin starts to get a little bit lost. So people will find that they will dry out much more easily. And you sort of mentioned in the winter, that's a classic time to start to see. And you may find that whereas before you didn't notice that much change, come the menopause, perimenopause, that sort of time, that you'll start to notice a lot more dryness and sensitivity. And around that sort of aspect as well, skin can become a little bit more redness prone. So, you're contending with the flushing as well, and then actually that will start to be noticed within the skin, and for some people that's a really frustrating, irritating symptom. So dryness and sensitivity is definitely something that we notice significantly, and you may also find roughness as well. So where that nice sort of smoothness that often comes with hydrated skin, you may have had in the past, that you start to think, what's going on? My skin's feeling really rough and tight and dry. So that's very much something that we start to associate with the menopausal period. And then if we think at a slightly deeper level, we also start to notice changes within like our mid layer of skin, and that's where the volume is. That sort of plump volume that you see, right at the extreme, like kids, nice plump round faces, because they've got lots of lovely volume within the skin. And that volume comes from the structural proteins within your skin. So your collagen, which acts like the scaffolding of your skin, that starts to become slightly sort of weaker over time. And that's where we notice, thinning of the skin, wrinkling, all of those sorts of changes. There's this terrible statistic where, basically past mid-20s, you lose like 1% of your collagen each year. So past mid-20s, it starts to go down. This menopause period, in the first 5 years after menopause, you lose 30% of your collagen. It's like, wham, it just drops off. And then it starts to go to 2%. So it's quite a dramatic time.
I think you just described me there with everything that you said. And actually it is a big drop off, isn't it? The amount of women that say to us, I can remember the quote from one of the questions we had last time, where a woman said, everything's dry, everything is drying up. So it is quite common, but there's a lot that we can do, I guess. And that brings me on to my next question around, you kind of answered a lot of it. But the question around the main challenges during this time. So it is the redness, it is the sensitivity. The other one that we hear a lot about is spots. That's a big challenge around menopause, isn't it?
Absolutely, and I see an awful lot of women, sometimes women who are going through HRT and trying to get their HRT sort of right. So you know, a combination of things, and particularly the more sort of male hormones. So if you're having to take a bit of DHEA or having to take a bit of testosterone, those are quite pronounced to actually cause spots. And we know that every time we see in the menopause, you start to see estrogen. I don't need to tell you this, but you know, as I'm explaining it to generally to people, you see estrogen dropping, and so relatively your male hormones start to come up a little bit more. And male hormones have a very significant impact on what we call our sebaceous glands, and that's where spots develop. You know, if you get a blocked pore and a spot, it's going on within your sebaceous gland, and that shift in hormones, and that might just be naturally as your estrogen and your female hormones start to come down, and relatively your male hormones start to go up. But I very classically see a lot of women sort of perimenopause who've been really tired, and they're on quite strong sort of testosterone DHEA regimes, and you know, their skin just breaks out. So you're absolutely right, acne is another big issue that we start to see around that time.
Thank you very much, Emma. So when it comes to what we can do about it, the top tips around this time, what would you say that we can all do to keep our skin glowing, looking healthy, help ourselves during this time? Because actually, menopause can really affect how you feel about yourself, your own personal identity, can't it? You know, when you look in the mirror and you think, well, that can't be right, and when did all of that happen? So what would be your top tips that we could all follow?
I mean, this is such an important point, because I think when I start to talk about the changes, I mean, people must just feel, you know, totally demotivated, like, well, I mean, I might as well give it up, everything's going in my skin, I'm losing it. And actually the flip side to that is there is so much that you can do to approach it. And I see so many menopausal women in clinic who actually, by the end of the time we've finished things, okay, they're not looking 25 because that's not what we want to do, but they are really, really happy with the condition of their skin. And actually often they say, my skin's, you know, some of the best that it's ever been. So there is so much that you can do to actually try and address things. I think the first thing is to try and work out what your own individual skin needs are. And I find that as a dermatologist, that's my most successful approach. Is like, what do you want to achieve with your skin? What issues are you noticing? Because as I'm sure, like, you know, you go into Boots and everyone will tell you that their cream is the best, and you look on social media and there's so much out there and everyone is bombarded with all of these messages about what to use. But it's really about working out, you know, what is the issue? Is your issue sensitivity? Is your issue spots? Are you looking for sort of volume? So are you more worried about lines? How can you target those sort of individual things? But I'll talk through some of the very classic things that we start to do in menopause, and about how we would address them, because each of them can be really successfully addressed in lots of different ways. So dryness and sensitivity was something that I talked about, and this is definitely something that you may find you need to adapt your routine, whereas you might use the same sort of, you know, foaming cleanser or harsh acid toner or whatever it may be for many, many years. Now is the time to get a bit of extra hydration within the skin, because if your skin is dehydrated, it just makes it look dull. It makes it look, you know, more lined than it otherwise would be. And actually, even the simple process of locking back in a bit of moisture can just instantly get your skin to look a bit more glowy and dewy. So that's one of the key bits. And I always start with, you know, the way, for example, that we cleanse our skin. Often people feel that you need this really sort of squeaky clean feeling after you've cleansed, and you don't. You know, that often means you've really stripped your skin barrier, particularly during menopause. So you want to pick a nice, gentle cleansing product so that you're not going to strip the natural sort of lipids from your skin. You may go for a non-foaming. There are lots and lots of non-foaming cleansers out there. And as we've evolved over time as dermatologists, we've realized that actually products that do foam can often affect the acid level of your skin. It can really strip things out. So picking a really nice gentle cleanser, often which is non-foaming, and that might be a cream-based cleanser or a balm-based cleanser, which can be fantastic to actually just soothe the skin a little bit. Then moisturizers, which are absolutely key, and looking for ingredients which can help to boost your skin barrier. So I was talking about that outer layer of skin, which protects your skin and which keeps it healthy, hydrated, stops it from getting dry and flaky. You've mentioned that, you know, people do experience dryness and flakiness. The ingredients that we're looking for in a moisturizer which can help to boost that are things like shea butter, glycerin, hyaluronic acid, even mineral oil. So all of these work to hydrate your skin, but also to add almost like an occlusive layer on the top to stop water getting out of the skin. And a nicely formulated moisturizer will have a number of those different things in it. And often it's about trying to find something that's quite gentle, quite rich, whereas you might have gone for a lighter lotion in the past. You want to stick for a really much more sort of hydrating cream within the skin. And that will help to soothe some of the irritation as well that people might get, and help with a bit of redness. So even the simple things, like I'm going to come to the more sort of advanced technology later, but really, truly, the simple stuff like cleansers, moisturizers are a really, really important part of protecting the skin.
Thank you very much, Emma. And you did mention some of the new technologies. And before this call, I checked in with you about Emapel, because I got this at an event. And I'm not very easy to sell face creams to, because I see the claims and I think, yeah, it's actually just emulsion. It's probably not got an awful lot in it. If you go to a dermatologist, if you go to you, then you can actually recommend different products. But off the shelf, it's very often not, it says it does this and it does this, and it keeps your skin moisture in, and that helps on its own. But when I started using this, and I'm not going to open the lovely box there, this one's mine, this cream. And when I started to use it, probably within a month, I noticed one of my big problems was always around my nose. It was always flaky. I don't know why. It used to look like I'd either been constantly blowing my nose or I was a drinker. I don't know. Always seemed to have redness around there. And I used to get quite irritated about that, particularly on photographs. But this took it away. So that got me to say, well, actually then, what's that got in it that was helping?
Yeah. Emapel is extremely exciting because it's the first of its kind of, directly targeting menopausal skin. So the active ingredient in Emapel is called MEP, which stands for methyl estradiol propanoate. And it's a type of molecule which isn't hormone itself, but it simulates the effect of estrogen on the skin. So actually what it does is it tries to help boost the hydration, it helps to try and boost the scaffolding proteins, all of the things that I've talked about that start to change as you drop your estrogen levels. It really tries and simulates that, but without having any general sort of hormonal effect. And you're absolutely right. So your experience is absolutely mirrored by the clinical studies, which is when I first came across Emapel. Before I now work with them, but before it was at a conference in America, where it was a big dermatology conference. And they were talking about the exciting sort of results. And so in clinical studies, really great results in terms of, dryness, general sort of luminosity, radiance, helping with fine lines, all of the sorts of things that people really struggle with. And it's this MEP technology, which is so targeted towards the sort of changes that menopausal skin starts to experience. And it's just so exciting to be able to try and change the sorts of things that we know happen at menopause. And instead of saying, well, it's an inevitable feature of it, it's actually, we're going to try and tackle that and help with it. And what I also love about Emapel is that alongside the MEP technology, it also really tries to harness all of the other ingredients that we know can really benefit skin. So when I talk about, people always ask me, like, what brands do you like using? I'm like, I'm not about brands, I'm about ingredients, because obviously I'm a doctor and that's what I know. I know what ingredients can actually get into the skin and actually help. So when I'm looking at sort of active ingredients in skincare, the other stuff apart from the MEP that I love within the cream that you mentioned is niacinamide, which is great for barrier, retinols, which are so good to try and help reverse some of the changes. So I think there are so many reasons why actually the Emapel is a fantastically formulated product and can really target the changes that we see during menopause.
It's not cheap, is it? I mean, there are more expensive creams out there on the market, but it's sort of pound for pound. But it's interesting what you say about ingredients. And when we share this, I'll make sure that, and put it into an article, I'll make sure I share the ones about shea butter, glycerin. What was the other one you mentioned? Retinol?
Niacinamide, retinol, absolutely.
Okay, so we know what to look for on the bottle.
Exactly, so that you're trying to sort of intelligently formulate your skincare with things that actually work and benefit your skin, rather than just a whole marketing ploy or lovely fancy packaging, which we all like as well. I mean, don't get me wrong, we all want our bathroom shelves to look nice, but equally you really want stuff that's going to benefit your skin. But I want to pick up on the point that you mentioned about price, because you know what, you're absolutely right. Emapel is expensive and it might not be within every budget. I have patients that have varying budgets. And I think there's something out there for every budget. But you know, if I was going to spend that amount on a cream, actually I'd happily spend it on Emma, because actually I think you're going to put, you know, get a lot of results for your money, whereas actually I think there's a lot of similarly priced skincare where actually perhaps you don't get that sort of thing, perhaps stuff that's, you know, more sort of endorsed by celebrities or marketed or whatever else. So I think it's about, there is a skincare routine out there for every budget, so don't be put off if you can't afford something like that. There's always something that you can do, but equally if you're going to spend that amount on a skin cream, I think this is a pretty good use of budget.
Thank you very much, Emma. And I can see that we've got some questions coming in through Q&A. We've got some pre-submitted ones. So I'll invite my colleague, Sally. And if you have any further questions, do please keep them coming through. And we'll try and answer as many questions as we can. So Sally, what's been the chat?
Okay, so we've got lots of questions. People are really, really interesting topic for people. So the first one is, I get very itchy skin. Is that just dry skin, or is it itching because of sensitivities too? So she's just kind of wondering what might be causing it, so therefore what would be the best.
Yeah, so bang on. Dry skin equals itchy skin, no doubt. So the first thing when we see, and we see a huge amount of itchy skin as dermatologists. So the first thing is to get in there and hydrate, and you know, take out any irritants, take out that foaming cleanser, take out harsh, you know, detergents, acids, alcohols, things like that, and get a really nice sort of cleansing cream or balm, plus a really hydrating moisturizer. And often if you hydrate the skin, you can help with the itching. If you're getting red, flaky patches, almost like a little bit of eczema, then there's more going on than just dryness. And in that case, you may want to have a look, and could you be sensitive to any of the products they're using? Most commonly, the sort of sensitive things that we see are sensitivities to fragrances, either perfumes or fragrances within skincare, or preservatives within things. So that's something to be aware of. And then you might have to go and get sort of medical opinion about that. But the first thing is, you know, get the hydration going, because that's the vast majority of people that we see with slightly sort of itchy skin is because it is just a bit dehydrated.
Okay, and it kind of leads on to the next one, which talks about, someone said that they've never had skin issues before until recently. 6 weeks ago, they started with a red rash on their chin around the mouth. They've sought advice in their pharmacy, but so far what they're doing isn't made any change. And so would you say at that point they need to go and see someone, or what advice would you give?
Yeah, so I mean, maybe if I had seen somebody in clinic that said, you know, 6 weeks ago, because it's quite a specific time frame, I'd be like, right, what happened 6 weeks ago? Did you change anything? Did you change your skincare? Did you add anything in, any new tablets, anything like that? So try and work out what happened about 6 weeks ago. I mean, there are lots of different things that can happen, but there are particular rashes which can happen around the nose and mouth where you can get a little bit of dryness, sensitivity, tiny little spots. There's a condition called perioral dermatitis. I mean, this may not be exactly what it is, and that's sort of where I'm thinking in terms of that. So it may be that there has been a change in something, and most commonly I see that there's sort of changes in skincare. It may be changes in the weather, things like that. So start by really making sure that everything you're using in your skincare is very basic. Strip out any actives if you are using any sort of obvious you know, retinols or potentially irritating things. Just strip them out for a bit, see how you go. And if you're still getting problems, go and have a chat with your GP, because you don't want to be putting like steroid creams on and things like that, because sometimes with those sorts of rashes around the mouth, it can make it a bit worse.
Okay, and we've kind of got one from a given question and one that's come up here around eyelids. Yeah. People saying they get quite a lot of dryness around eyelids, and then things like makeup often exacerbates it. So again, what you'd recommend from an eye cream point of view?
Eyes are such an interesting area, because I think that the skin there is the thinnest skin that you have in your body. So we see an awful lot of sensitivity, because that skin doesn't have the sort of robustness that, say, you know, cheek skin or forehead skin. So if you're going to get irritated on your face, it's very likely that the first area that you'll get irritated is around the eyes. If it's dryness and sensitivity, you're going to have to look at what you're using around the eyes. So are you using quite a harsh makeup remover that might be fragranced? Are you using makeup? So a lot of makeups, eye makeups, eyeshadows, things like that will be fragranced as well. So the first thing is to strip all of that out, get a really nice sensitive skin makeup remover. A lot of the French pharmacy brands and things that you can actually get from pharmacies will have non-fragrance, very gentle eye makeup removers for sort of intolerant skin. And have a look at the ingredients of your eye makeup and try and strip out any fragrances there. And that's a really good way. And then adding in a moisturizer of some sort. Now, eye creams, I have to be totally honest, I'm a bit underwhelmed by eye creams. The bottom line is that if an ingredient's going to benefit your skin, the likelihood is they're going to benefit your skin all over. I mean, if it's because you're too sensitive, then pick a nice thick moisturizer, unfragranced, and put it around this sort of area, because a lot of the eye creams will be used for people that want to try and target lines and wrinkles, and often they do have active ingredients in them. So I think your best bet is just to strip out any irritants, put lots of moisturizer around there and see whether that can improve things. And the eye area is so interesting, because the minute you get dryness, those lines and things start to look more a problem. People are like, oh, I feel like I've aged overnight, but it's actually dryness and dehydration. So often that can really help.
Excellent. Someone's mentioned about taking HRT, saying if someone was taking HRT, would you have the same benefits from using something like Emapel as to if you weren't taking HRT?
This is such a good question, and to be honest, the totally honest answer is the studies aren't out there. And I'm all about the studies, so I like to quote what's been shown and sort of not just individuals. It's an interesting, theoretically it might do. So partly because we know that sometimes creams that apply directly to the skin, they penetrate down. They have a different effect to something that will go into your body and be metabolized and then go into your skin, if you see what I mean. So sometimes, for example, vitamin C is an ingredient that I use a lot as an antioxidant to try and protect. And actually what we know about vitamin C is that taking it orally doesn't have as much effect, whereas putting it on the skin does have an effect. So potentially it could do. The other great thing about something like Emapel is that it's got all of the other ingredients, retinol, niacinamide, that I really like, that wouldn't be helped by oral HRT or patches of HRT. Although, but saying, so the question is, the answer is it might do, and there are lots of other things that would definitely do. Saying that, I'm a massive fan of HRT, if I'm honest. I mean, obviously it's not suitable for everyone, and I think the studies do suggest that it has a nice, beneficial effect on the skin as well, but obviously it's not the primary reason for taking it.
Okay, and I know this came up last time, and I think it's a really interesting one, is your thoughts on collagen supplements.
Yeah, not a fan, myself. This is a bit what I was saying about putting taking something orally. When you take collagen, it's a big molecule. You take it in a supplement, and your very efficient sort of stomach acids and enzymes chops it up into tiny little pieces, and then it gets distributed into your bloodstream in these tiny little pieces, and then your body has to build it back up into collagen in your skin. So it's just not so simple as like taking collagen and it goes directly into the skin. And similarly with collagen creams, I'm not a massive fan either, because it's a massive molecule and your skin's a bit like a sieve. And healthy skin actually won't let big molecules actually into the skin. Your best bet with your collagen is to make sure that you are optimizing all of the things within your body so that your skin is at its best to produce collagen. So have a great diet, have a really nice rich protein-based diet with lots of different amino acids, and then make sure that you're not losing lots of collagen, you're sun protecting, you're helping with antioxidants, and then you're boosting it with things like either MEP or retinoids. So that's sort of how I tend to go about it, Sally, rather than going for sort of collagen supplements or collagen containing creams.
Excellent, thank you very much.
And one of the things, I was just taking a look through some of the questions, Sally, some really interesting ones here. We covered a lot around what to look out for, and just the opposite question is what to avoid. And it's an interesting one here, because we've also got a comment around, I get very red and flushed after drinking alcohol, coffee, and reasons why. So I think that one's twofold. What to avoid while shopping for your products, and what to avoid generally.
Okay, so what to avoid from shopping from your products. In the menopause, I would be careful about products that contain denatured alcohol and ethanol, and they may be in things like toners, they may be in other things. They're in quite a lot of sun protection actually as well. I'd be careful about those because they're quite harsh for a more sensitive menopausal skin. So alcohols, I would be careful about things that block pores, because we've talked about the fact that you can actually be quite prone to spots during the menopause. So be careful about things that contain like coconut oil, cocoa butter on your face. That's not ideal. And then the other thing is essential oils. And I think this is a fascinating topic, because I think often when your skin starts to get a little bit more sensitive, people are like, oh, natural, that's going to be so nice for my skin and it's going to be boosting. And actually we see a whole world of problems with a lot of the heavily botanical containing creams or essential oils. They can block pores, they can cause irritation. So I would try and steer clear from those. And actually that a lot of the stuff that's packaged as like natural skincare, half of it is not natural, it's sort of synthetic, because it has to be, you know, if it's going to sit on a shelf for 3 or 4 months, it has to contain a preservative that's going to keep it not contaminated and not get bacterial sort of infections. So I would steer clear of those. So those are my sort of 3 in terms of skincare. In terms of what to avoid in lifestyle in general, I mean, my top one has got to be excessive sun. You know, your sun exposure is still a key part of the way that your skin will age and keep healthy over time. So excessive sun is something to avoid. Smoking is number 2. I'm sure your community do not smoke because they are, I think, but I mean, it's horrendous for the skin. And then sort of, you know, excessive alcohol. I mean, the odd glass here or there, if it's not flaring up your skin, is, you know, is okay if that helps, you know, quality of life and it relaxes you a little bit, the odd glass, but not sort of excessive. So those are the sorts of things that I'm thinking about when I'm thinking about.
Yes, and we have got a key theme here around dryness, and this one I really get. Can you have greasy skin and dry skin at the same time? This was the cycle I was in when I was getting spots and trying to clear my pores out, stripping them out, then it'd be dry, then I'd replenish. Where do you start?
Oily sensitive skin is a thing. So it's not just you, it's definitely something I see in the skin all the time. And either it's because you're dehydrating your skin with your products, or because actually the oil production that you get comes from your sebaceous glands, which are a bit deeper down, but the hydration of your skin will come from your skin barrier. So they are 2 separate aspects of it. And it's so key that when you're trying to treat things that you don't dehydrate your skin, particularly around menopause. There are lots and lots of ways of doing it. You know, if you are going to use an active ingredient, and that might be something like retinol, which can be helpful for spots and blemishes as well. It might be an acid. So you might choose, say, an AHA, glycolic lactic acid. You may choose a BHA, salicylic acid. But when you're doing it, introduce any of those like active products slowly. So start twice a week, then slowly go up, and keep the rest of the skincare quite simple as well. All of the principles that I talked before about cleansing and moisturizing, because you really want to protect your skin barrier. And normally if you do things slowly and you gradually build it up and you don't overcomplicate the rest of your skincare routine, most people will be able to tolerate active products, which can help with blemishes and bumps, but not dry out your skin. That's great.
A few comments in the questions again here. Around, there's a lady that was saying that she's a woman that says while she was pregnant, her skin was awful. And, you know, that's what we're talking about here, isn't it? When you boil it down to symptoms as a result of significant hormonal change, actually what people are doing now, today, starting to become educated around perimenopause and what it means, does mean that, you know, you can sort of appreciate that there's some extra things that you'll need to do around this time.
Yeah, exactly. And targeting those bits as well. So knowing, you know, what's going to work for those sort of aspects of it.
Thank you. Any further questions from you, Sally? I'm reading the one that says, I got problem with dry ears. I think that's the same response, isn't it?
Actually, there's a very common condition, something that's called seborrheic dermatitis, and that can quite commonly cause some irritation around the scalp, a little bit of flaking and dryness here in the eyebrows, and very commonly around the ears. And it can sometimes get worse if your skin's sort of oily but sensitive as well. So that might be something that you're getting. And there are some over-the-counter, so pharmacists are great as well with skin. They've got some over-the-counter shampoos that you can use both, you know, in the scalp, sometimes around the ears. They've got some creams. So that's sort of when I'm thinking about ears. Sometimes I do think about seborrheic dermatitis. All of this stuff is so treatable. And I think sometimes, even though it's like it's not sort of life-threatening, it really bothers people. So I would definitely advise people, like, we can manage so many different things really well.